Hello and welcome to this video where we will be discussing understanding your body composition. Now, body composition isn't just about the amount that you weigh or your measurements, it's to do with your body being broken down into what's fat, what's muscle, what's bone, and what's water. So it describes your weight more accurately and provides a better glimpse into your overall health. So why is it important? Why wouldn't we just listen to the scales or just concentrate on the measurements, just solely one of them? So body composition analysis can accurately show changes in fat mass, muscle mass, and body fat percentage. So this goes against not so much now. I think BMI is starting to be phased out, but definitely in the last kind of 10 years, definitely 5 years, you go into say a GP and they tell you that you're overweight and your BMI is blah blah blah, say 30. So it's not a fair representation because body mass index is an assessment of the health of an individual by comparing the amount of their weight that they carry to their height. So there's no way to identify if changes in your weight are in the fat or in the muscle. So I'll give you an example of an article that I read. It was, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, and it was a female bodybuilder. Now she was in absolutely incredible condition. She very very lean. I think if my memory serves, I think it was before a competition. So I think she was just going for a cup. I don't know why she was in the GP, but irrelevant. So she went in and the GP then got her to stand on a set of scales, and because she was really dense with muscle, but also very, very lean. Now we're talking like visible muscles and six pack and whatever else. I mean, a bodybuilder show is um, a competition to see how lean they can get and the definition in their muscles. So if you've ever seen one, if you haven't, look one up, pause this video and look one up, like bodybuilding competition, anything you like, female, male, then you'll see just how lean they get. Now, this woman had obviously been training X amount of years for this, or months, or whatever, to get in incredible condition. And she went into the GP's office, and the GP said, "Stand on the scales for me." And based on her muscle mass, so she was now more dense with muscle, um, based on her height, she came out as obese. And now she's standing there on those scales, absolutely ripped to death in incredible condition. And the GP is standing, looking at her, telling her that she's obese. So the woman's like, absolutely, I'm not obese. You can literally see me. But based on this calculation with your weight versus your weight times your height, then it's a completely outdated and inaccurate method. So this is why we don't just focus on one sole thing, and this is why, again, body composition gives a much clearer insight into the individual's overall body fat percentage, muscle mass, etc., etc. So why using one method doesn't tell the full story. So scales of BMI cannot tell you how much of your weight loss is fat, muscle, or body water, but body composition can. So by differentiating between muscle and fat, body composition removes the guesswork of determining what your weight fluctuations mean. So essentially, if you jump on the scales and you haven't lost any weight, that doesn't mean you haven't lost any weight. It just might mean that things in your body have shifted in terms of you've gained a wee bit of lean mass, you might be holding a wee bit of water retention, or you might have just leveled off in terms of you haven't lost any weight, but you don't know. So this is where you just can't tell the person that, oh, you've done really well or you've not done so well based on just jumping on a set of scales. So the types of fat. So we'll go through this just so that you understand the difference. So subcutaneous fat is stored under the skin, so that is your body fat. So the amount of subcutaneous fat that you develop depends on your genetics as well as your lifestyle factors such as physical activity and your diet. So it's the one way that your body stores energy, and it also functions as a padding to protect your muscles and bones from the impact of hits or falls. It also serves as a passageway for nerves and blood vessels between your skin and your muscles. It insulates your body, helping it regulate temperature, and it also attaches the dermis to the muscles and bones with its special connecting tissue. So visceral fat, now this is the one that we don't like because visceral fat is the dangerous fat. This is the one that's linked with all the different health conditions and the one that we want to actively get rid of. So it's stored within the abdominal cavity, located near several vital organs, including the liver, stomach, and intestines. So visceral fat cells tend to let go of fatty lipids, lipids being fat cells, soon after they're stored, allowing them into the bloodstream where they can then cause health problems. So by doing this, so visceral fat lets off fat cells. Now they go into the bloodstream, which then cause, for example, clogged arteries, and this is what we don't want. So that can't be measured with BMI and scales, so it goes undetected. So it wraps around major organs like the liver, pancreas, and your kidneys, also the heart as well. It ensures that there's some distance between each organ, and too much visceral fat can lead to inflammation and high blood pressure, which increases the risk of serious health problems. This is also known as central obesity. So I'll use the example now. I'm not stereotyping at all, but an older male with a massive stomach. Now, you know the type, big rock hard stomach, but it's like very out the way. Now, that is central obesity to a T. So that gentleman who may have a big stomach, but he's not really got that much fat anywhere else. It's just all in that big. You would probably class it as like a, to try and describe it better, a beer belly. So that is central obesity to an absolute T. Now that man is under a lot of risk because he has then got a lot of visceral fat, which is all around his organs, which is then letting go of fat cells into the bloodstream, which is then clogging up the arteries, which is then putting them at risk of heart attacks, strokes, everything, you name it. So that is exactly where you do not want to be. You do not want to have fat around your organs because that is the one that will cause health complications or worst case scenario, it will cause death. Now, adiponectin, which is a protein hormone produced by the fat cells, its function is to regulate your body fat. So, visceral fat inhibits that, so it actually stops the production of that. So, as a result, your body stores more fat than you really need. So, a high level of visceral fat also influences your insulin sensitivity. So, essentially, the more visceral fat that you've got around your organs, that then inhibits the adiponectin, which then stops your ability to regulate your body fat. So essentially, the more fat that you've got, the worse it gets. So as soon as you start getting rid of that, the better, because your body can then start regulating its insulin sensitivity again, and then can start burning off this fat and get rid of it. So it can also lead to type 2 diabetes later on in life. It can raise your risk of heart disease, Alzheimer's, stroke, and high cholesterol. So really, really, really important that we get rid of the visceral fat as much as possible. And if you're wondering, is there a certain type of method to get rid of that versus the subcutaneous fat, which is just the body fat? It's just diet and exercise. It will go. And nice thing is that anytime you lose weight, the visceral fat is the first one to go. So be assured that anytime that you're starting to change shape, now not necessarily change any weight. Now I want you to pay attention to this. Not necessarily changing weight, but you are changing shape. Your visceral fat is going because your waist is coming in, your stomach is coming in, that visceral fat is then disappearing, which is exactly where we want to be. So the benefits of additional muscle mass. So the additional muscle mass helps bolster the immune system to fight off illnesses. It supports good posture, enhances your mobility, prevents frailty in old age. It also increases your metabolic rate, which I've mentioned in one other video. And just to save time so that you don't have to scour back through it again, the reason that it increases your metabolic rate is because the more muscle mass that you have in your frame, and again, not size, but density, your body requires more energy to actually move that muscle, so you're a more efficient fat burner, which again, perfect situation to be in. Your muscle also fortifies the bones, ligaments, and tendons, which can help to prevent broken bones and tendons, sprains, and tears. And also, it builds up your core strength, which will improve balance and coordination and will reduce the likelihood of accidents resulting in injury. So I don't just recommend people put on muscle just for the sake of it. You think about your body's going to have to last you your full life. So why would you not take care of it now by putting the things in place that are going to make you strong, going to make you stable, going to make you agile, so that later on in life you're not going to be one of these poor old frail people who, and I hate saying it and I hate even describing it because it's such a shame, but if you've ever seen a wee old man or a wee old woman and they're walking along the street and they can barely lift their head because their posture's that bad and they've got a big hunched back, all that can be reduced significantly and even completely eradicated later on in life if you start improving your posture now by strengthening the muscles in your back and so that you get a nice upright posture. Because think about the likelihood of you being able to do certain tasks and live life pain free or pain reduced by putting all of that in place now and making sure that you are not a frail, weak person and later on in life. And again, that's not a derogatory comment at all, but I just want to make sure that everybody's doing this for the right reasons. So we're all putting on a bit of muscle mass to strengthen us up so that later on in life our body actually thanks us for it and we don't have any complications, and we're not in and out of hospital, we're not at the GP for painkillers because you've got an arthritic hip that could have been solved if we had just done a bit of work on it in the younger years. So all of this hard work now will pay off massively in the long run. Now also, your muscle makes everyday activities easier. So the main reason for lifting weights shouldn't just be aesthetics, now that's the way you look, but functional strength that makes every single day so much easier. So as I said, you don't want to be in the position where you can't open a jar, for example, because you've got weak hands or weak wrists. You want to be doing everything in day-to-day life to the best of your ability, because you don't want to have to get to a certain point where you can't do things and it could have been avoided by just simply just doing a bit of gym work in the earlier years. And even now, main thing about understanding body composition is not to listen to one source of information. We use multiple different sources of information, measurements, body fat testing, scales, etc., so that we can get a big picture and see actually what's happening and explain to you and get you to understand that your weight might not have changed, but that's absolutely fine because you're doing everything right and your body is making the changes that it needs to make, and you are actually losing body fat, but you're also increasing your muscle mass at the same time. All right, so that has covered understanding body composition. I will see you in the next video.